support them, and you are really trying to advance this work by knowing what you need to be connected, by being supported. And so coming together as a group should look like time. This is likely a first conversation of many. Felt like the right thing for us to be doing together. I know everybody is basically experts at this point at using Zoom, but in case anyone is still looking for some tips and tricks to get you through it, I wanted to introduce who is here supporting you on the call today, and a little bit about how we're going to use our Zoom functions. So there's a couple ways that we're going to use Zoom today. We're going to use it as a way to all be together, to hear some discussion, some sharing, some conversations. We're also going to kind of branch out and use the Zoom breakout rooms. We're going to zoom into Zoom breakout rooms a couple different times. The first time is going to be an opportunity for small group introductions, just a little bit of a chance for folks to reach across this kind of space and time abyss that we're working in virtually to find out who each other are. And then we're going to do breakouts at the latter part of the meeting to go more deeply into some of the topics that came up through the registration forms, which many of you completed. As we use our Zoom meeting room, especially in our large group, I just want to make sure folks are oriented to ways in which you can participate in group conversations. So there's a mechanism by which you can be participating to speak. So as folks have come in, many of you have muted. I don't think we've actually muted lines, although Rachel, you might have. It looks like more people are muted now than I had seen before.
I didn't mute anyone. Everyone just has great etiquette.
Wow, thanks everyone. Well, please don't allow that group etiquette to hold you back, though, when you have things you would like to say. We encourage you to raise your hand. We expect to be at or over capacity for this meeting, which is about 100 people. So typically, if you're in ASAP teleconferences, you know that we run them very openly. We kind of try to keep lines unmuted as much as possible. Just for the sheer number of folks that are here today, we're asking for lines to be muted. But if you want to speak up, we encourage you to do so. Raise your hand and we'll unmute your line. If you would like to share ideas via the chat, you can do that as well. And Lily Swanbrow-Becker is on, and she is our chat room manager. So she's going to be watching out for comments in there to highlight to the group. And she's also going to be looking for your input on what celebrity would you most want to be quarantined with. So there's something to think on while you're exploring your Zoom processes. In addition to Lily joining me on the call today, I'm joined by Rachel Jacobson. She's going to be helping us out with the tech of the Zoom rooms. Rachel Jacobson is ASAP's Deputy Director. Rachel, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. So good to be with all of you.
Excellent. And we're also joined by Kyle Sullivan. They are our program assistant. Kyle, would you like to say hello?
It's great to be here with you all today.
Awesome. Kyle is taking notes for us during this meeting. And Kyle, if you wouldn't mind just dropping a link to that notes document in the chat, that would be terrific. So folks can be following along with notes and even adding additional notes if you'd like to. And Lily, I didn't see your camera up here, but if you'd like to say hello as well, that'd be wonderful. There you are.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that slow mouse. I am really happy to be here and having this conversation today.
Awesome. And I'm Beth Gibbons. I'm the Executive Director of ASAP. I have the honor of getting to do a lot of listening and organizing, coordinating across this network of professionals. And I'm going to be your host and facilitator for our conversation this afternoon. So what is it that we're going to be doing? I've talked about this a little bit up until now. The purpose of our meeting today is to explore how the ASAP network can support members at this time of change and really to begin a conversation on how we as adaptation professionals address the pandemic. These are big topics we don't expect to be solving. Frankly, I don't expect to solve anything today. We expect people to come together, to have an opportunity to share, to have an opportunity to reflect on the work that they're doing or the feelings that they're having. I think if we were all together, I would ask you to, stand up, put your hands in the air, stretch out a little bit, get comfortable. I hope that for many of you, when you come to this call, and maybe different than some other conversations you've been in, you really feel like you're coming to a place that has a sense of home for you. And we want you to have a sense that this is a place for you to come and to share what you're worried about, what you're hoping for, what you feel like is out there for you to provide to the network, and what you hope that you can be getting from the network to alleviate those fears and to achieve the hopes. And so we're going to start with small groups and introductions. We're going to talk about registration themes. We're going to talk briefly about ASAP programs and services. And then we're going to go into our key theme breakouts and come back for report out and discussion. So the first breakout that we're going to head to is going to be for about 5 minutes. We're going to send you out randomly, distributed into the Zoom breakout world. You should have, I don't know, Rachel, what are we planning on? 4 to 5?
4 to 5, yeah.
You'll find 3 to 4 other ASAP members in your breakout room, and we hope that you'll take a little time to kind of have a virtual handshake here, talk about your name, your affiliation, and share a fear and a hope. And we hope that, we hope you'll do it in that order too, something that you may be concerned about, and I hope that there's something that you're hopeful for. And after about 5 minutes, you'll see a countdown appear in your Zoom. So, everyone is back, and get myself oriented and back. I was actually not expecting to go to a breakout room, so that was kind of fun for me. I was like, oh, here we go. So just as a quick reminder, folks who maybe joined us, as the breakouts were in session, for our Zoom logistics, we're asking folks to be muting themselves throughout this meeting. If you have, if you want to join in the conversation during Q&A, report outs, and reflection periods, please do so by using the raise your hand function. At any point in our meeting, please be eager and happy using the chat to suggest ideas and questions to the group, pass on notes, saddle up next to somebody as you would and maybe over getting coffee in a regular meeting, and share your thoughts privately. You can use the to everyone, and if you actually click on that down arrow where it says everyone, you can actually send a message directly to an individual if it's not for the entire group. Lily, any kind of report outs yet on, lessons we should be learning about what celebrity you would most want to quarantine with?
Yeah, there seem to be some interesting themes, a lot of entertainers, some politicians, and a lot of chefs, which has caused me to rethink my original answer of the Dalai Lama to maybe switching to a chef. So yeah, if you haven't contributed yet to the conversation, please do.
Awesome.
Anthony Fauci is the answer.
I thought of that.
Right. So I want to start out by providing a recap and what we've heard from all of you, and we're going to do this for 2 reasons. One, I want to express the gratitude that I feel for how much you've already contributed to this meeting and this opportunity for discussion. And 2, reflecting on this feedback is going to be framing up what we'll be doing for the latter part of our meeting together. So when you registered for this meeting, we asked a question, which was, as your life and work change in the midst of COVID-19, what do you need right now from your professional community? We had over 115 people who registered and who shared their thoughts and their expressions of what this means and what this means for their work, for their community, and for themselves. And there were some topics that seemed to come up from what we heard, but there were also some really moving themes which underlined a lot of the sentiment that was coming even as people articulated specific topics. And those themes that came up over and over again were looking for solidarity, looking for connection, training, discussion, inspiration, sensitivity. And I'd say that these kinds of ideas, people were looking for the opportunity to turn to this community, turn to this network to learn how they could build relationships and strengthen their practices, but also really, I think they're persons. As one person said, I want to learn to be a more sensitive partner. I think that a lot of us are experiencing something in our day-to-day lives that is a very different work environment. A lot of us have worked from home in the past, or maybe have all along. Having whole families there is something new and different. And even for those of us that don't have families who are physically with us, I think that there's a level of attention to family, to friends, and to loved ones that is heightened, and that is a wonderful thing. But it's also something that we're working on. How do you navigate this space of being separated and being highly connected and working together? We heard a lot of questions of just, I'm a senior, I'm a graduating senior, and I thought I'd work in adaptation. What do I do now? And people who asked, at a different phase of their career, that I'm a small business owner working on adaptation, and what do I do now? And I think that seeking out of advice and seeking out of guidance and how we learn from one another were, in some ways, for us as ASAP staff, when we looked at this list of sentiments, was really meaningful because a lot of them felt like things that we're able to provide. And we wanted to share those kind of themes that we took away as we had reviewed the list of comments. And so more to what folks had said to us and what they want to get out of, I think, an opportunity for conversation here today. Questions of how do I maintain momentum in current work? How do I harness this moment? How do I get a job? How do I keep my business afloat? And we went through the 70 or 80 comments. Not every single person who registered gave us a specific comment, and we worked to synthesize these into categories that we thought could capture the ideas of advice, the kind of bodies of advice or insight and sharing that folks were hoping to express over the course of this meeting. And so many of you have gotten these instructions, and I think many of you are already following these instructions, but the way that we're going to run our breakout sessions for the latter part of the conversation is that we want you to be reflecting on what question is top of mind for you. And so we know that there's a lot of things that right now you may want to be thinking about and want to be acting on, but we're asking you to kind of take this list of questions that we've compiled and to consider which one is top of mind. And I'm going to read these questions out because I think there are some folks who might be on the line, or maybe you're just in a setting where you can't see them. So it's a lot of text, but I'm going to give just a minute to do some slide reading. So question 1 is, how can I usefully respond directly and immediately to the COVID-19 crisis? 2, how do I maintain momentum in my current adaptation work? 3, what are best practices for modifying the work I'm doing right now to deal with COVID-19 realities and regulations? 4, what are the connections between climate change and COVID-19? 5, what are the best practices for integrating resilience principles into pandemic recovery? 6, how do I get a job? 7, how do I keep my business afloat? 8, how do I cultivate a positive environment for myself and the people I interact with during this time of crisis? 9, how can I harness this moment to make progress on transformational change? And 10, how do I preserve policies and practices put in place because of the pandemic that have climate adaptation benefits?
Hey Beth, this is Rachel. Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, I hope so. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody. It didn't even occur to me. I bet I haven't been sharing it since we came back from breakouts, huh?
I think that's right.
Sorry about that.
You did a great job without slides covering.
Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so you can now see this list of questions. And I'll give folks a minute to actually kind of look at these, sit with these for just a couple of seconds before we provide the technical explanation of how you're going to indicate your interest in what group. So what we want you to do, and you'll have some time between now and when this actually has to be done, but what we're going to want you to do is to actually change your name to indicate what group number you want to be in for the group discussion. So you can see a screenshot of how you would do that. You hover over your name and you should see an option that says More, select Rename, and type in your name indicating the group that you want to be part of. This is going to help Rachel as she runs the tech side of things to be able to sort people quickly and easily into the appropriate breakout rooms. Between now and when we go to breakout rooms, I'm going to give a brief presentation, about 10 minutes, as an overview of some of the ASAP programs and services, so you'll have time to think about what group you want to join. And so hopefully when we come back around to the breakout setup, you'll have updated your name so we can move smoothly into breakout sessions.
There are just a couple of phone numbers that I see who didn't access the spreadsheet to tell me what breakout group they want to be in. So if you are joined only on a phone, and you also happen to have access to your email, if you could email me, rjacobson@adaptpros.org, your breakout choice, that will be great.
Excellent. All right. So we expected that there would be folks here who kind of ran the gamut of those who are part of ASAP program and activities on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, on a month-to-month, and there may be some folks who are in this call who are ASAP members or prospective ASAP members who are less familiar with the kind of work that we do day-to-day. So we wanted to provide an overview of our programs and our services, really as a way of helping you to know how you could plug into these, and also because when we go into our breakouts, we want to have an opportunity for folks to reflect on ways that ASAP can be supporting you, and we thought it would be helpful to have a little refresher on what it is that we do here so that you feel more equipped to have that conversation. So I'm going to talk about our ASAP member groups. I'm going to talk about our ASAP communication programs, our professional development tools, and our innovation in action, kind of falling under an applied projects and opportunities framework. For those of you who are unaware or maybe haven't recently explored the ASAP website, I really want to encourage you to even follow along at home as I go through these services, because the ASAP site is newly remodeled. It has a lot more accessible information than ever before, and I hope that if you haven't spent time exploring it, you'll do so, and you may even want to take some time to multitask and to go into the member portal and update your profile and your information. This would be a great time to do that while we tell you about the other things we have going on. So to begin with, I want to share a bit about our member-led interest groups. We really think of the member-led interest groups as being at the heart of our membership network. It's through these where members are able to connect with one another, share best practices, share resources, come together under an umbrella of topics which are selected on an annual basis and really are driven by a transparent member selection process. As we're going into our member group activity of 2020 into 2021, we have 5 active member groups, and they include a policy and practice group. They include a climate migration and managed retreat, a group on social cohesion and climate resilience, a good grief, personal resilience network practice, and a network of networks group. These groups meet on a monthly basis. They vary in how they are organized and how the groups really are very much directed by the members and how they want to form as either peer-to-peer learning or production groups. Our Good Grief Network this coming year is a cohort learning program. So this group is going to proceed through a series of meetings together in cohort form following the Good Grief Network style. And in fact, we've already made some adjustments to our plans for this year where we're going to be hosting 2 cohorts of the Good Grief Network. And so I encourage you, if you haven't already looked into this group and it is something that may be interesting to you for personal resilience, to do so, because we're trying to do everything we can to accommodate as many people as we can in this member group. In addition to our member interest groups, we also have a variety of ongoing member advisory groups. Our member advisory groups are standing groups, which have been formed over time because they really address a kind of perennial topic or challenge or place of interest of the community. Current advisory groups are on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, or as we call it for short, the JEDI group. We have a member advisory group on professional education, which has been dedicating itself to creating a knowledge and competencies framework, to understanding what employers' needs are and how employers are seeking to find adaptation and resilience professionals in their jobs, and understanding the learning pathways that exist for adaptation professionals out in the field. We have a strategic planning committee, which is currently working toward a 20-year vision for ASAP and 5-year incremental steps towards achieving that vision, and our ASAP Board of Directors. Our ASAP Board of Directors will be holding elections again in 2021, and I encourage everyone to think about this as a role that really requires more of your time, but allows for an opportunity for people to really be deeply engaged in the direction of the organization. As we move into our next program area, our adaptation voices, again, you will find on the website now a blog. And in fact, at the top of the blog post on the website is a piece on really our communication approach and how work has been evolving here so that we're trying to make sure we're targeting and engaging the adaptation field in ways that reflect the innovation in the field, the needs of the field, and really making sure that we're telling member stories in every way that we can. A core program within our Adaptation Voices is our Regional Adaptation and Leadership Awards. Our leadership awards are an opportunity to highlight adaptation professionals who are leading through vision, thinking, communication, doing, and learning. We have RALA nominations open now in regions across the country. And we tend to host our Regional Adaptation Leadership Awards in coordination with regional fora that take place. This year, we're, as many people are, kind of adapting this program and trying to figure out how we're going to host these awards, as some regional adaptation fora are also figuring out their own implementation plan for this year. But the RALAs are going forward, and so I encourage you to look into this. There's information on the website that you can find to get involved in your region. And sort of at the core of the ASAP Voices program are the various ways that we communicate directly to members. So we send out weekly newsletter, bi-weekly network news, which is stories within the network, and then we do a monthly newsletter, which hosts kind of like most timely and newsworthy stories from across the adaptation field. That highlights an innovation story, by the numbers story, and we use it as a vehicle for making sure that folks have at their fingertips, kind of like what is the most innovative thing that we see happening across the community. As we think about the way we support careers and jobs, there's a variety of ways we do this. We put out a weekly job summary and opportunities. It includes, it includes events, it includes grants and opportunities, and we also include a variety of programs at ASAP to strengthen people's capacity as individual practitioners. So our mentorship program is one of our flagship programs. We've had 37 pairs who have gone through this. And we also have an important living guide on the principles of adaptation, which is a training which we host and will be, sorry, little people at my door. Our next living guide training will be happening virtually, actually, with a Civic Spark group in California, and it's something we're excited to be able to share with the network through a virtual format. Just as a quick tips to ASAP programs and products, you'll find on the site guidance on the work that we're doing together with EcoAdapt to create the Climate Adaptation Resilience Registry. You can find summaries on our work through regional adaptation conferences, our living guide on the principles of adaptation, which is indeed a living guide and consistently updated to respond to this changing practice, and our mentorship program guide, which really provides a tool for those in the mentorship program, but also seeking to develop mentorship program kind of attributes outside of the ASAP structure. Finally, we launched this week a new site, which is on private sector resources, which is an overview of the ways in which ASAP is working to ensure that as the private sector working in this field grows, that we're connecting it with the rest of the adaptation community, and doing this through a couple of specific programs, including a pilot program where we're connecting public data source providers with private practice throughout the Great Lakes region, and we hope to be able to replicate in other communities and other regions. So I think that for folks who haven't heard these before or haven't been connected, I know it's a lot of information. At its core, ASAP works to try to bring people together to try to make sure that we're reaching across the spectrum of our membership that includes nonprofit, academic, private sector members, in a goal to really connect and support people for this mission of advancing the field. And I want to give folks a couple of minutes, and this is where you could use those raise hands or chat functions if there's any questions that folks have to clarify in ASAP programs before we kind of forge ahead and continue our conversation in small groups on where are we going from here and how can we use some resources within the network and outside the network to advance all of our work. And I can't see if there are questions. I've lost my participant screen.
Beth, I don't have any questions in the chat regarding programs and services.
All right. Great.
Oh, we have a nice kudos on the new website. Thank you, Erin.
Thanks, Erin. Well, then I think that we ought to keep moving along so that folks have a lot of time for the conversations that we're really hoping to get to on where we are in this moment that we're in. So Lily, I'm handing it over to you. Do you want me to advance slides for you, or?
Yeah, that would be great. I always get a little disoriented when I share my own screen. So yeah, I'm really excited to share just a little bit more about how we're going to frame this breakout activity. Really, as Beth expressed, the purpose today, first and foremost, is to give everybody the chance to connect on wherever it is that they're at, given the current pandemic crisis. And the themes, how we've structured the breakout, and I see a lot of you are indicating your breakout preference through renaming or have reached out to Rachel, so that's great. But really these topics, as Beth mentioned, they came from your ideas. And so, I just want to emphasize that because I want everybody to be assured that, whichever breakout group you choose, it can just really be what you're feeling at this moment. And it's very low pressure, but we designed this activity to hope give a little bit of structure to help frame your conversation. So what you're going to be doing in the breakout groups today is a round robin activity called Give Get. And really ultimately what you'll do is go around round robin style and share something that you're hoping to get to support you today. And it can be you and or your work. So that's another important point. It can be the personal or the professional. And then also share something that you have to give or offer that could support others. And again, I just want to highlight, if you haven't picked your breakout group, there's the sidebar that lists all of them. So, just to go through a couple examples of how that might look. And in these examples, the give and get kind of match, but they don't have to match. I really want to emphasize that the sky's the limit for what you can share. But one thing is, maybe you want to hear or get ideas for keeping your work moving forward in this time of reprioritization and shifting everything, really. And then a potential give is, I want to give or share how my department is prioritizing projects. So sharing your experience, reshaping those priorities. Another example could be, maybe you want to get ideas on how to connect climate and climate adaptation in the current COVID-19 pandemic. And then maybe a give would be you or someone else in the group can share or give a compiled list of recent articles on the connections between COVID and climate. And then maybe, again, it can be really basic and really personal. Maybe you just want to get the opportunity to talk, and what you can give in your breakout group today is you can give space to listen and hear what others are saying. So feel free to take this wherever you want to take it. Hopefully the group that you choose can kind of provide a topic or a bit of a structure for you to go through the give and the get activity. But again, what you share, they don't have to match, and you don't have to feel pressured to have anything really action-oriented to give or a need to get that you want to express. So the way the breakout's going to work, specifically what you're going to do, you'll be sent through the breakout room portal. And if you haven't already indicated your breakout room choice, don't stress out about that. If you end up staying in the main room for a couple extra minutes, we can help sort you into a breakout room. The next step that's going to be important is identifying roles. So someone will hopefully step forward to act as a facilitator or leader to make sure that everyone gets a chance to go through the round robin and help frame the conversation afterwards. Someone should also be a note taker. We want to make sure to capture everyone's ideas and hopefully inform our report back if we have time for that. And then step 3 is go through round robin style, the give-get exercise. After everyone has a chance to share, it will be great for groups to reflect a bit on the gets. And not all of them may have a specific place or role for ASAP to be involved, but we do hope to kind of move the needle and making this conversation progress by identifying some areas where ASAP could support or be involved. So if it is clear, you might be thinking, or others that are active in ASAP programs and groups right now might be thinking of where are some areas within the ASAP network where we could provide support to some of these needs or gets, and where are potential matches between an existing program and needs that you are identifying, and then where are areas that we might want to look at doing something new. The next step is going to be the report out, and so then again that's that group conversation, identifying possible needs, resources, and ideas for how we can bring in the ASAP network to support these needs. And also make sure to pick someone to report out to the main group. Are there questions or anything anyone would like to add about how the breakouts are going to work, what you do, anything? Okay, well, in that case, we can go ahead and start the sorting. I'm going to give you 20 minutes.
Oh, look at all the people back. That's so fun.
Kind of automatic. You just get shot back in.
Like, can we take a picture of all these people? It's so
The new Brady Bunch.
awesome.
This is honestly the most fun webinar I've been on all week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never done like the different rooms. It's really cool.
Oh, yay. That was wonderful.
Well,
So, if everyone is back, then let's do some sharing of how your breakout room sessions were. And you were asked to select a facilitator and ideally somebody to report out. So let's start I'm just going to go through the groups. And this is really fun because if we were in a big room and I was facilitating, I would be like, that table in the corner, and then I'd have to see if I knew someone's name, but I actually have all of your names. So it's really easy for me to call on you. So if you're the group reporter, then you should do that honor for your group. Otherwise, I'll just call on somebody else at random whose name I have access to. So let's start with group 2. And if you...
Hi.
Yes, hello.
I'm Rennie. I'm the note taker turned report outer.
Awesome.
If y'all are ready.
Totally ready.
Great. So we are the Momentum on Adaptation breakout group, and we think there were sort of 2 different main themes that I took away from our conversation. The first, in terms of momentum, is that we had a couple people who are based in universities, and there are students who need to complete research. There are PhD students who are trying to defend their dissertations, and they are really feeling the pressure of getting students out into a troubled economy, and also just making sure that they actually are able to complete all the administrative or research-based or funding-dependent tasks that they have to do to graduate these students. But it's also about the appropriateness of taking up people's time to ask questions about adaptation in the context of people who are already feeling immense burdens from either their own home life, their professional life, and exactly where it's possible to engage people and where it's appropriate to engage people. And additionally, how you can engage people when there's such a huge digital divide. And some of the communities that you might be funded to reach out to. So there's one example of a heat island study where originally there was a coalition of folks who were going to go do research on heat islands and be able to get into the community. Now that's all going to have to be digital. You can't go door knocking, and a lot of the folks who they want to interview about some of this adaptation work are not going to be connected to the internet or don't have access to reliable internet in the same way that we do here. So those are some of the get concerns. On the give side of how to make that work more accessible, I think that's something that ASAP can help with also. So coming up with some ideas about how to circumvent the digital divide would be, I think, a really interesting question. How to make the virtual better and enhance that experience. Just speaking from my own resources, I think that Digital Coast has some really good virtual training workshops that NOAA has already provided. But our facilitator had some great advice about how to not additionally pressure or burden people to participate by reframing the conversations that people were hoping to have from decision making instead to sharing facts, sharing values, and just continuing to broaden people's awareness of how the rest of the coalition feels, and empathetic listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to your group, and thank you for that share out.
Welcome.
Group number 3. Do we have any 3s?
I think the third group got eliminated because there weren't enough people who signed up for it. So the people who signed up for
it did too. Okay. Yep. So let's go into group number 4.
I could go over what we had. Lorna, if you're still on, I wanted to offer you any big thoughts since you were the facilitator.
Okay, no, go ahead, Sean, and I'll add.
Okay. So we had the connections between the pandemic and climate. We're focusing on the give and get model. So we went through a few specifics, but we did have a couple of lists that people had already started, Google Docs of articles comparing the pandemic and climate. And I think that's something that we'll be able to share around. I think we had the general acknowledgement that ASAP has collectively, we've developed a we have an expertise in this in resilience broadly that applies to climate, but could apply to the pandemic. So this is an opportunity to sort of apply those lessons to the recovery that will inevitably happen, any new institutions that get built, or any new measures that get built after this, and even in the maybe medium term, there's a lot of talk in DC, it has been for a long time, but there's a lot of talk in DC about an infrastructure bill to sort of stimulate the economy in the shorter term while the pandemic's still happening. Resilience will need to be a aspect of that conversation. We had some conversations also on communication and how people are handling that right now, whether climate is being actions about climate are being brought up, or whether that is being avoided explicitly, whether this is derailing climate conversations, or whether it is a call to being more serious about it. We didn't get too in depth in that. I think that there is I shared my own experience. I mean, NOAA's climate take on this right now is, as a federal agency, is to sort of not to stay in its own lane and to not comment on any with COVID. But I also shared with my local county that it's maybe too early to tell, just because there were climate conversations that were starting in Montgomery County, Maryland, that have now been swept to the side as the county responds and just has to do whatever it needs to do now. It'll be interesting to see how they do handle that, though. And Lorna had added in that Denver Water is starting to incorporate thinking about this into strategic far. We also got offered, I just have to mention this, we got offered from, who was that offered that? I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Sandra offered a Coral City Cam for the endorphins during our pandemic lockdown, to where you can watch Coral as a live stream, and we can share that around too.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. That's great. So for what we could see ASAP maybe helping us with would be helping synthesize all the papers that are coming out. There's a lot out there, so maybe the challenges and opportunities, and then a little bit of what Sean was noting on how do we, and I think Group 5 will talk about this, but how do we bring the climate change principles, resiliency principles to help us in pandemic response to recovery, but also vice versa. And how does that set ourselves up for just more robust adaptively and building more adaptive capacity?
Cool. Thank you so much. So then let's hop over to Group 5 and resilience principles for pandemic recovery.
Hi, this is John Phillips, and I took notes furiously while everybody was speaking, but I kind of drew 4 key themes out of what we were talking about. So I'll talk about a theme and give an example. The first theme was basically preparedness for this and resiliency go hand in hand. And I think the best example we have of that is kind of the 4 counties Florida climate resiliency team that includes electeds. So their ability to respond to this pandemic is because they had this regional climate resiliency team. So there was great regional coordination. Anna echoed that. She goes, resiliency, preparedness go hand in hand, and that's what they're telling. She's from the National League of Cities. Getting information out is a priority right now. But then there's this economic recovery and health, which is true through any resiliency. The next big theme I heard was spending recovery money wisely, or spending it the right way, and don't get into maladaptation. Laura brought that up really well. Which was then echoed by others, including Jennifer, Anna, and sorry, I had to scroll down a little bit. Christian, all talked about that being a high priority. Christian even brought up there's the ASAP adaptation principles, and that maybe there's this opportunity to do some cross-training kind of during the conditions, and get people more focused on what's useful during certain emergencies, and people can be cross-trained to do other things. Let's see, our next theme that I saw was use the adaptation guidelines to guide the investments. And then the other part of this, I heard everybody say this, is continuity plans are really important, but so are the recovery plans. So basically having your own continuity plan wherever you work and making sure that's tied into the recovery plans. And if there's anybody from group 5 that wants to add anything else, that's pretty much what I captured listening to you all, and it was a great conversation.
Great. So I think that for some people, there's an expectation we'd be wrapping up at 4:15, and so I want to acknowledge that. I want to also be open to stay on here, I think, till 4:30, so folks who are in other groups can do their report out. Certainly in the ASAP team, we want to capture those, but I do understand that folks have obligations upon obligations at this point, and so understand if you respectfully need to step out. We are planning a follow-up meeting 2 weeks from today on April 17th, which will be an opportunity to have these thoughts compiled and then share them with the community. So this isn't the last opportunity for these conversations, and just wanted to provide that as an interim announcement before we go on to hearing from Group 6.
Yeah, so I'll report out for Group 6. So we were discussing job seeking in this environment, and a couple of the ideas we came up with were sort of like I know ASAP puts a bi-weekly jobs email out. Maybe we could expand that to be a listserv to make it a little bit easier and more direct for members, simply post jobs more quickly. Also, somewhat of a like a community project want set up in some way, as a member could post wanting collaboration on a project, paid or unpaid, and people could join, could contact the member and join in, such as where I have these listed in a place so people can kind of create their own opportunities. And lastly, there was some discussion about maybe some specific work with early career professionals, and one thing I didn't get a chance to add is for mid-career professionals, those of us who have been doing a lot of this for a while, but may potentially have too much experience or something. That might be useful as well, but that's what we have.
I think you were muted.
Oh, sorry. We're going on to Group 7 to hear from our business continuity resources.
Great, Beth, and I had a great conversation with Lily. We got started really, and I would say that in the give and get model, we talked quite a bit about how with SMSBF and what we do locally here is to try to promote the idea that, and this is looking at it, I guess, from a 10,000 foot perspective rather than at the individual business level, right, for resources, that we're working on advancing policy that's progressive and more, conducive to advancing small local businesses that will build diversity and resilience into the system versus, what's taking place today. And that's the give part. I personally believe that a lot of what we see in terms of the inequities in this country in particular are rooted in how we practice business, what we think business is, and that those are just absolutely wrong ways of looking at it. So locally, our message is that business is about lifting up the common good, and it ought to build equity, and it ought to provide opportunities for meaningful work for people, and we should do and minimize and eliminate harm to the environment and all of the manifestations that they have. So that's sort of that messaging part, that transforming of the way we see things and view the world is foundational to, I think this virus. I mean, this is systems thinking, right? I mean, we're dependent on this system for our survival, and the way we approach business and the way we do it is absolutely wrong in terms of that sense. So that's the give part. The get part, I will say, is this opportunity right now to look at the ways that we can collaborate and cooperate and just, being thankful for this opportunity to be on this webinar. And I think I'm going to echo something I heard when we just got started back, is that this is the best Zoom meeting I've been on all week. And I've been on like a bajillion of them, and you guys are doing a great job. And that's the get for us, is glad to be here, glad to connect. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. So we're going to hop over to group 9, which is how can I harness this moment to make progress on transformational change?
So I took notes, and I have to apologize. I didn't start taking notes until after Joyce Coffey made her comments regarding social justice and a need to create equity in order to pursue resiliency. You can't have resiliency without equity and social justice. And Joyce, I apologize that I'm paraphrasing so poorly.
Perfect.
In addition to, oh, thank you. In addition to that, we had Taylor, who he was a little bit concerned about water use in response to the COVID pandemic, and how that's going to be impacted, because a lot of the revenue for his company, it's a water company. It's involved with lawn watering. So if people don't water their lawns and that's not going to occur, then what happens, and how can they be resilient around that? We heard from Heather Dansker. If you want to make somebody's wish come true today, Heather is looking to build bridges through the American Evaluation Association. What she's looking for is introductions. So her last name is spelled Dantzker, and please look for her at heather@dansker.com. Melissa O'Connor, she is looking to compile some examples of articles discussing opportunities by different areas, and she's able to also contribute to those examples, but that's something she'd love for ASAP to organize a little bit and make possible. And I'm Peter Hoffman. I got to throw in my 2 cents. I'm looking for ways to rebate resiliency measures, and in order to do that, I need quantifiable benefits. So that's something I'm looking for. If you have the time, look me up, and let me know your thoughts.
Cool. Thank you. That's great. Okay, then our last group is group number 10, and how do I preserve policies and practices put in place because of the pandemic that have adaptation benefits?
Yeah, this is Josh Foster. I was the note taker. I basically got onto this group to find folks who I might recruit for helping with efforts to engage the Hill, and I found 3 other people who work for the government. So, but they all had good things to say about essentially how the government can both prioritize and funnel money and better listen to its stakeholders in terms of providing climate dimensions to, or risk assessment dimensions to the stakeholders in this country. So Luann, it was Luann Dahlman, Bharat Balian, and Elisa Samoy. And Luann started off by sharing a postcard that had gone out from the administration talking about things, measures to take to protect yourself from the COVID virus. She transposed in climate, and it basically is just as relevant if you use the word climate as if you use the word COVID. So I think she could potentially share that for the good of the notes. So Elisa, she works for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and she is doing a assessment of critical infrastructure for tribes, and how money from the aid package can best be spent to increase resilience within the whole sort of infrastructure and resilience realm. She's also a newly graduated and young professional, so she's looking to learn from our community. Bharat is at CDC. He doesn't particularly work on climate, but he is interested in how climate and other issues connected with the response and resilience can be connected. He's also a sort of a new young professional, recent grad, who's interested in learning from our community. And then Luann works at NOAA. She is responsible for user engagement on the Climate Explorer that NOAA has and trying to produce products in this context of this crisis that's going to be better serve the public, both from a climate and a COVID response perspective. So if any of them want to add more to that input, then I welcome it.
Cool. Other thoughts around the room, things folks want to share, observations, anything that struck you as we went around? We're close to the top of our new set time to finish, but I do just want to extend an opportunity for... All right.
Oh, I just want to point out that Joyce requested in the notes the postcard from the administration that Josh mentioned, if there's a way that she could see that. If you have a link for that, Josh.
Yeah, Luann, as I said, Luann shared it. She may have posted a link. I'm not sure. There it is.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Luann.
Yep.
I just did. I had posted it on Twitter.
Cool.
It's really only funny if you compare it to the one the administration sent. Maybe I'll post the before as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, everyone should be getting these coronavirus postcards in their mail because we just got ours yesterday.
So we're right at the top of our hour and a half together now, and so I want to thank everyone for participating in the conversation. As I said, as we were going through our report outs, that our expectation is to host a follow-up meeting on April 17th at 3 p.m. We'd be happy to hear from folks who'd like to help to organize for that. We'll be taking the notes from these conversations and compiling them into a usable format and going through and seeing, coming back to you to say, these are ideas that look like they stand out for potentially ASAP work, using our role as a connector and an intermediary organization to reach to those that have resources from our partner organizations where there could be support, and then looking to all of you to see, where are people asking for assistance that you might be able to provide. ASAP has built into its work plan for the coming quarter and potentially beyond to support an additional member group that may come out of these conversations. So that's something that we know that we're prepared to do. And beyond that, we're really looking forward to exploring the way that we continue this conversation and keep hearing from you and talking together. So Rachel or Lily, as you're watching and listening and running tech, is there anything that you see or hear that should get mentioned before we sign off today?
I don't think so. I don't know if you have anything, Rachel, but thanks so much, everyone. This has just been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you both, and thank you especially to Rachel, who runs Zoom like a boss, obviously. And if you have any questions, you have her email address, so ask her and she'll do it for you. Not really. Not really. But she'll give you all the advice. She'll give you all the advice in the world.
My mom has already booked up all of my Zoom IT time, so I'm sorry, there's none left.
We're happy to stay on for a couple minutes for folks that might have questions or anything you need from us. But otherwise, I hope you all go and enjoy your weekends, and we'll talk to you soon.
Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
Ciao.
Great
Bye-bye.
to see everybody.
Beth, I'm hanging on here for a second because there's actually several of us from the American Evaluation.
Oh yeah, I would love to talk to you.
Yeah, we really should connect because we have a working group. We have actually several working groups that are now starting to really collaborate with ourselves, much less outside organizations. But we are really ramping up that activity and that collaboration. And so Arlene Hopkins on this call, I don't know if she's still on or not, but
yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so maybe a next step would be to just have a call with you, Beth,